Hello guys, I'd like to welcome you in this first class that I'm going to give about mastering orthodontic biomechanics. You're welcome in this class. This is the beginning of our process. We are going to go this way, like we are going from the beginning to understand what is important in orthodontics, meaning, first of all, understand our own mistakes, our own errors that we sometimes, we have this problem in our biomechanics, in our treatments, because we don't know in the beginning of the process of understanding orthodontics itself, we don't know how to deal with, how to escape from this kind of mistake, this tricks that we have in our lives. And this is what is important for me, that you understand the whole process. So I'm starting with the basics and I'm going on and on and on. I'm very happy to be here with you, and you staying here with me, being here with me, it means to me that you want to evolve as an orthodontist. So this is important because you want to go from here to here. And for that, understanding the whole process, I'm sure you're going to provide better treatment to your patients, and you're going to be very happy with it because you're going to be very easy in your practice. You are going to do the daily practice, your daily practice, like I do my own practice. Now I come to my office and I see my patients and I'm not worried what's going on because I understand. And I understand what's going on because I understood the whole process. I took this time to understand those 10 or 12 years, that very, very, very focused years in biomechanics, for learning it very, very thoroughly, for being here with you nowadays, for being here with you to teach you how to do things in your daily practice. In case you don't know me, I'm Kleber Meireles. I'm a professor of orthodontics, and I'm for now 20-something years giving classes in orthodontics and being invited to share this information, to share this knowledge with many people around the world, many orthodontists around the world. I've been teaching from 5 or something years in several countries, showing the way I do orthodontics, because I developed this way of teaching people that I consider very important, because you can see that in a 3-dimensional way, not just, this is the way you do because this is the way we've seen people being treated and it's okay. No, it's not like that. For me, it's important for you to understand the way I see things. If you see those things the way I see, I mean, I see things in this 3-dimensional way, you can understand things better. And I'm going to show you during this very class here how many people are doing the wrong way because they just don't see the right biomechanics involved in what they're doing. Okay? Every day, I answer questions that comes to me directly in direct message in Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. And it's very important for me to show people how I deal with things. But of course, it's very difficult to answer all those questions. And for that, I'm developing this way to reach you with all those questions that come to me. So I'm starting with the basics, the most frequent questions that I take. And from there, I'm going on and on, so very, very smoothly so you can understand everything. For facilitating your learning, I separate those classes in 4 classes, 4 major classes that I'm going to release in 1 week. It's very important, pay attention, very important that you come from the beginning, you start with the class 1 and you go on and on and on, but you have to watch those classes from the beginning to the end. It's very important. So I'm going to release class by class during this week so you can do this way. You go from the beginning and you go growing your knowledge during this week, okay? So I hope you do that. Do that for me. Well, after this quick introduction, grab pen and paper and let's move on. I'm sure this class is gonna start changing the way you see orthodontics and the way you are used to learning orthodontics, okay? You know, guys, many orthodontists come to me saying, Kleber, I don't pay much attention in biomechanics because biomechanics is very, very difficult. It's tricky to understand biomechanics. Sometimes we think we understand everything and everything changes. Maybe the way you are learning biomechanics isn't the right way. I'm going to change in your mind the way to teach biomechanics. You're going to see that. But more than that, additionally, it's very important for you to understand something and pay attention. You owe this to your patient. This is something that you need to do. Learning biomechanics is not an option. It's mandatory. I'm going to say it again. It's not an option. It's mandatory. When you do that, you're doing the right way with your patient. You're being with your patient, that one who's trusting you, who's trusting his mouth, who's trusting his teeth, and the smile to you. You owe it to those patients. You need to understand that. Sometimes you don't know biomechanics and you go doing our treatment and having a lot of side effects that may jeopardize the patient's life included. Why I say that? Oh, Kleber, it's you're being too an exaggeration. And I say it's not. It's not. You know, I have some patients that come to me sometimes crying, saying, "You changed my life. I was very shy. I couldn't smile. I couldn't go out and say what I wanted to because I was not confident. And that changed my life." Can you imagine doing the opposite? You have a patient, beautiful patient, and you do the treatment and you do exactly the opposite. You do something bad for this patient. You do something bad for their lives. You jeopardize their smile, and smiles are important. That's what I say to my students. And sometimes I'm very passionate about saying this. And I ask you the apologies for doing this, but I am this. I am this kind of person. I'm very passionate for what I do. And that's why I say this to you. It's not an option to understand the way you treat your patient biomechanically. It's mandatory. So pay attention and let's move on. Starting from here, we're going to go deeper and deeper in biomechanics. And we start with the erros. And I'm sure I can prove to you by showing my cases since the beginning of my treatment, since the beginning of my career in orthodontics. I'm going to show to you that changing the way I treat my patients, changing the way I apply biomechanics in my treatments, I changed my very way of treating my cases. And now I can treat faster, safer, and having very, very, very low side effects during my mechanics because I can control that. And you are going to be able to do the same thing, I'm sure. Before I start with the biomechanics itself, I'm going to say to you something that may put you at ease. I know you're worried about your learning skills. I know you may be worried about what you have in your toolbox, in biomechanically speaking, and you may look at that toolbox and say, well, my toolbox is almost empty. I don't have many ways to treat my patient, many tools to treat my patient. And it's not your fault. Believe me, I've been doing this for years. For more than 20 years, I've been teaching orthodontics here in Brazil and outside Brazil in many, many countries. And I always speak to my students that most of the post-graduation programs, they don't cover this. They don't cover biomechanics. Maybe because they don't rely on their students. They think that's very, very difficult and their students may just say, no, it's not for me, but it is for you. Again, I told you before, not an option, mandatory. And this is important. More than 90% of the courses, post-graduation courses that I know, they don't go deep in biomechanics. They don't go at all in biomechanics in some cases. And this is not your fault. I'm going to prove it to you. And many of those students that I've been in contact for so many years, they've been treating their cases in different ways, of course, but nowadays, they can recognize the problem. They understand where the problems were located, and now they can change everything. So this is what is about this class today. I want to share with you some mistakes, some common mistakes in biomechanics that may open your third eye to see, yes, now I can see. There's something wrong with what I'm doing for so long. And now, understanding the problem, you can change the way your life's going on from now on. Biomechanically speaking, of course. Now, I'm going to tell you a story. A story of my own career. When I started doing orthodontics in my daily practice after finishing my post-graduation program, which was perfect for what they could tell me, could teach me. It was one of the best post-graduation programs in Brazil. Nowadays, it is. People say that it's the best. The second, okay, it's very good post-graduation program that I had the opportunity to learn with. But when I came to my office, I started seeing some things that for me, wasn't good. Some things that for me, I felt that I was not being precise in my treatments because I had some mistakes that I wasn't expecting them to happen. Why was that? Today, I'm going to focus in one mistake only. But this kind of mistake, it has many, many problems in biomechanics. It has many, many legs, let's say, in biomechanics. So the same mistake, it will follow many of the steps that you are going to apply in your treatment. This mistake is, pay attention, very important, applying one line of action of the force in all cases. It's like one medicine treat all diseases. Is that true? It can't be true. It can't be true because you have one medicine for each disease. And this is important. I'm going to show to you now the step-by-step how I learned that thing that I was doing at that time wasn't the right way to treat. Okay? And here we are starting our program of learning biomechanics since the beginning. So for me, it's very important to teach to you the way I was taught. Yes, in the beginning, I understood that we had a sequence of arch wires and we can go on, and we go, and when we reach this rectangular arch wire, we do the retraction and correct the class 2 or class 3 with that or that kind of a torque. But there are some things that are missing in this kind of learning. What are those things? We are learning based on the average. We are learning all those things that we are treating our patient based just in one thing only, plain protocols. We are not doing the individualization of the cases. So let me show it to you something. This is something that I treated. This is a case that I treated like 15, 18 years ago or something like that. So first of all, I learned that I can do this kind of loop here with a boot loop for leveling and aligning, and I wanted to go up with this molder. But going up with this molder, what I realized at some point was that there's something wrong here. What is going on here? I'm doing the intrusion and I can't control the intrusion. Just the buccal side, just the buccal is going up, and I have the palatal portion of that tooth going down. What is going on? And of course, I had an idea of that. I'm applying the force buccal to the center of resistance of the molar, and it's normal to go like this, but it was happening very quick. And I stopped everything and said, wow, it's not good. Here I have another problem, but I'm not going to address it now because we have other things to address during this class. And as you can see here, yes, it's going up, and then I try to do something different. I'm going to try to show to you how this changed the way I treat my patient. In this case, I was just going on and on, activating, and I learned from my own mistakes that activating all the time was just going on and on with the same mistake. I needed to stop that, and I needed to avoid that mistake, not avoiding because it was generated already, but I had to correct this mistake without going on with intrusion. How can I deal with that? So I learned that from that moment that I need to apply not just a line of action of the force. I need to apply another line of action in order to avoid that. And again, studying a lot of this, understanding a lot of what's going on when I apply one line of action of the force. And this is something that I started with just learning a little bit about it with books, with articles, going to many courses, different courses. And I started learning that, well, I need to individualize my treatments. And for that, I need to apply another moment in the opposite direction, because the problem here is being generated by the moment I'm applying. The force that I want is doing its job, intrusion, but I'm generating the tendency of inclination, which is the moment. So now I need to understand how to counteract that moment in order to correct the problem that I'm generating. And what I learned in this kind of case, that I can use the beauty of the couple to generate another moment. The couple is pure moment. The couple, it can be applied in the right direction that you want. And when you generate the moment of the couple, you can apply a counter moment to counteract the moment of the force that you are generating, and you don't want that to happen. So when I do that, I mean, I can balance those two moments in order to have the net force that I want, just force in order to correct the intrusion. But for that, again, I needed to go deep and deep in biomechanics aspects, in biomechanics learning, so I could understand what was happening. As you can see here, we have the step that we want, which is the intrusion step. And the intrusion step is what we want to correct the unlevel marginal ridges. They are unleveled, and then I do the correction by means of doing the intrusion. And as I know now that I have the moment, what can I do? What is the source of the moment that I'm generating now? Is the couple, because we have other sources. This is the couple. And now I know that this is the outcome that is expected in such a situation like that. And I want to counteract that round vector that you can see here, which represents the moment. What can I do for that? The moment of the couple in the opposite direction is going to counteract the moment of the force. So what can we do for that? We apply the beautiful torque that we know to apply, how to apply. So if we are using a rectangular arch wire, the easiest way to do this is acting with a counter moment generated by the couple to balance the moment of the force, which is what we are wanting to cancel. So this is what I'm doing here, having those two moments. What is the moment that we can generate here? What is the magnitude of the moment that I'm applying now? What's the magnitude that I want? We don't know exactly. But what I say is we start with very, very light step bends, and we do a good moment to counteract that. And we need to wait the moment to take place. This is something important, and it is completely based on my experience, because we don't have articles saying that we need to apply 1 millimeter, and then for this 1 millimeter with 1725 TMA or stainless steel, we need to apply 15, 20 degrees, 30 degrees of torque. No, we don't have it. So what I do is apply approximately 20 to 30 degrees of torque each way I do the activation, and I do 1 or 1.5 millimeters using a loop for that you're going to see. And I go waiting for the moment of the couple to act, meaning if I do the intrusion and I don't let the moment of the couple act, meaning I do the intrusion and again, and I go activating and activating again the intrusion step, I really will take time and give time to the moment of the couple to act, to correct the inclination of the crown. Because the first thing that's going to happen is the inclination. You can be sure about it, because the easiest way to solve this force that is acting in that crown, specific crown, is going buccal. And then after canceling the vertical force, the moment is increased because it goes up. And now the relationship between the couple and the inclination of the crown is generating a larger moment. So you let the moment act. You don't do this every month, every consultation, your patient come back. You do the intrusion, light band, light step, and then you need to wait. Torque takes time. Torque needs to act in a long period. How long is that, Kleber? I would say at least 2 or 3 months. At least 2 months. And you wait and see, okay? Don't go activating and activating and activating. The only thing you're going to see is the crown going buckle. And you're not going to have the correction of the moment, the correction of the inclination. That's for sure, okay? So you can see here, we have the intrusion, and we can correct the intrusion, the moment generated during intrusion, just waiting the couple to act. Here you have before and after. And as you can see, this is another thing that we're going to discuss now. We are doing different ways here. We are dealing with different ways to do this, what we are doing. Intrusion of the second molar. This is a case of surgery first approach. And then, as we know, we do the surgery, and after that, we correct everything. So that's why we have the class 1, but you don't have the leveling of the marginal ridges of second and first molars, okay? So as you can see here, we have the correction, we have a good position, a good buccal position of those two crowns. So what we are seeing here is mostly the rotation of the second molar, the rotation of the first molar to have the settlement of the cusps and the grooves, okay? So now we have it. And this is just a detail of the step. Going on, we see what happened. And in the lower arch, I did another strategy. First we're seeing this. Upper arch, so just showing how to do the torque being applied. And I'm putting here the T-loop, the segmented T-loop with a TMA strip with TMA wire. And here we have positioning it inside the tube, okay? This is another tip for you. So one good thing to do here is to use for the second molar a convertical tube, meaning a convertical tube, you can convert this tube into something like a bracket when you remove the cap. And now it can go from buccal, because it's very difficult in the second molar to insert the wire inside the tube of the first molar from posterior to anterior, and then you go with the second molar from anterior to posterior. So if you're using a closed tube for that, it's very difficult. So another tip, you can use a convertible tube for that. This is what I use in my consultation, my office, and I use in my classes and our courses. Second molar, I need to do this. I change if I'm using, in this case, a closed tube, or I can just, since the beginning, plan for that. If I know that I'm going to do this, and I do a convertical tube, I position a convertible tube in the second molar, okay? So here you can see the torque being made, and then the insertion of the wire, the TMA wire, inside the tube. Can you see here? It's pretty much easier to do that when you do the convertible tube, when you use the convertible tube, in comparison with the closed tube. Remember this is important. It's going to facilitate a lot your life when you use the convertible tube, the second molar, when you need to do this kind of loops or bends or anything that you want, okay? But sometimes I use round wires. And what if I use a round wire? Well, if I use a round wire, what I do mostly, in most of the cases that I use the round wire, is using two bends. One bend to go down, and the second bend to go lingual, in this case lingual, because I'm generating two different moments. Look at this. This is one moment that is going to be generated in a counterclockwise sense, counterclockwise direction. When I use now a second band, an inward band, meaning step in band, I'm generating another moment, because now I have the force passing, the line of action of the force is passing above the center of resistance. And to understand the sense, I go around the center of resistance, and I can see what is the moment generated there. Step in as you can see, now you see the explanation. We have those two moments that at some point are going to be canceling each other. And when we use the trigonometric way to see the resultant, we see that we are applying a force, a resultant, very close to the center of resistance. So this is good. And what is the moment that we have? It's a moment, or what's the movement that we have? It's a movement that's going to be close to a translatory movement, an oblique movement, because it's going to respond to the resultant force, and it's going this way, not completely vertical, which sometimes is very good. Those differences we have to understand that they exist. So this is what is going to happen. Kleber, is that magic? Is like this, like you're explaining? Of course not. Again, probably the most probable movement that you're going to have in the beginning is the movement with the crown going buccal, because it's easier. The resistance resistance here is lower, and it goes like buccal. And then you take time, you put that, let it in position, so you have the correction of the inclination that you generated. Okay, and you wait. We just wait, guys. It's important. Don't try to rush everything, to do everything very fast, because it's not going to work. We need to respect the nature, okay? So don't do this. Do your bend and wait, and rely on the bend that you did, and wait so you have the whole process being completed, okay? So this is the first explanation of one line of action of the force, how tricky it may be. If we don't understand that we need to apply in most of the cases, in the majority of the cases that we are treated in our offices, we need to apply two line of actions, two moments, two different moments. Sometimes two line of actions, and sometimes one line of action and a couple, okay? We are going to address that in other classes. But for now, the poison of just applying one line of action of the force. Now we have another thing that we use very, very commonly in our practice, which is the open coil spring. We use them to close space, to go forward with a set of teeth, or we use that to open space. So we always use coil springs. Coils close and open, they are different. In this case here, we have the open coil spring, the compressing coil spring, to separate 2 points, okay? And this is very common. And what are the problems? Same thing here, guys. We are applying just one line of action on the force. We are having just one force, and the force is not being applied in the center of resistance, in the line of the center of resistance. It's far from it. And so we have to pay the price. If we don't understand that applying a couple to counteract this, if we don't understand the concept, we are going to apply always the same thing. And we don't know, but we are relying here in a weak couple, which is the couple present when we generate this interaction between the bracket and the wire, because you're inserting the wire inside the bracket. So in this case, yes, you're going to generate a couple, but it's a very weak couple, because we applied that since the beginning, using for that thin arch wires, light arch wires, and sometimes, most of the times, we just start using that from the beginning with night eye wires. So they don't provide a huge couple, a good couple, a good moment, and we are in the hands of just one line of action of the force, which sometimes may cause this. Not sometimes, always. It's going to cause something like this. So first side effect that we have when we use this coil spring, open coil spring, is the rotation. When you look from above in a first order view, what we have is the rotation of those two teeth that are close. The higher rotation is going to happen in those two teeth that are attached to the coil spring, as we can see here. And we have the rotation of premolar. Of course, we're going to have the rotation of other teeth also, but because the force is going to pass in another position, but not the same thing. The contact points will act, and many things are going to act here, but mainly in those two teeth, close or attached to the coil spring, we're having this huge side effect. Rotation. Is it good? No, it is not, especially in premolar, especially in this area when we don't have much bone to support this rotation of the premolar. Sometimes you go, we're going to see. Let's see. Let's not touch things. Let's go on. Here we have it. I can use another concept to avoiding this kind of rotation. Now I'm using for this chains position in the lingual buttons that I put in position here. And you see that we are applying a force this way that is counteracting the tendency that we have of rotation of the premolar. But we have the side effect completely present here in the molar. You can see that the buccal, the mesial buccal crown is going outwards, and the distal buccal crown is going inwards because of the rotation. Of course it is, okay? So we are not controlling it. Can we control that, Kleber? Yes, we can. Not now. We can. I'm going to show it to you in another class. Now we are addressing the problems, okay? So you can see here that this is the side effect. And the second side effect is one way to release the compressive force is expanding the dental arch. So in this case, what we have is this. So the force is going buccal. Yes, you're going to see this a lot. And the third side effect is, of course, the side effect in second order, which is generated because we are applying in this view, in this lateral view, we are applying the force outside the center of resistance, in this case, above the center of resistance. And we are creating, because of the line of action of the force passing outside the center of resistance, we are generating the moment. Oh my God, this is a very bad moment, ugly moment. You're going to see now what's going on. So this is a transfer case that I got like 10 years ago, something like that I received 10 years ago. And this is the way I see this patient. I saw that patient like this, with this cant in the lower arch. And this patient, she was a patient of mine because of her husband, and her husband treated with me, and she came to me to try to solve this problem because she told me, Kleber, this is something that I'm hating. I was completely symmetric, and now I have this something asymmetric. I smile, I feel that one side is upwards and the other is downwards, and I hate that. What's going on? And she was with this coil spring, and she told me that the treatment was the treatment plan was to open the space here to put in position the implant, which was correct because she's a class 2. She was a class 2 patient, and going forward with this position, with this teeth here, more mesial was the right thing to do, but not this way. And not applying coil spring for a long time, and especially unilaterally. The problems are always the same. So we have everything that we explained before. We had the buccal inclination of the crown because it's going to expand the arch. We had the inclination of the crown of the premolars, and this moment generated this tendency of rotation of just one side, of inclination of just one side, and this is what was going on at that time. So I did again, I correct everything, I restart the treatment, and now I have the correction that we are not going to address during this class. Remember, we are addressing the problems here, and the problems, when we see the problems, guys, when we see and when we can recognize, we are able to recognize the problem, this is the first step to go upwards in your scale of perfect treatment. Meaning, I understand the problem. I stop doing this because every time I'm going to do this, I'm going to generate the same the same outcome. Okay? So generating a problem, okay, but not recognizing it is the real problem. So our focus here is recognizing the problem. Okay? So here we have it again, same thing, one side trying to correct the class 2, going with the coil spring, open coil spring for a long time. Patient came me this way, and I always do the same thing. I ask for the patient to go to the center of documentation to do the records, photographs, x-rays, and the scanning and everything, so I can have everything before initiating the treatment. Before even putting my hand in one bracket, I have it in my hands, because this is what I inherit in here. Starting from here, everything that happened before this, it's not in my account. From here on, yes, I take it in my account, and I will do the way I think I'm going to do, the right way. Okay, so here we stop and we start, and here we stop doing this. Class 2 elastics were being worn in one side. As you are going to see, we have this class 2 in one side and class 1 on the other side, what we call class 2 subdivision. So before initiating, and I took pictures of what was going on when she came. First day in my office, these are my own pictures from the first consultation. And I asked patient to wear the elastic so I could see what was going on. And I used for that another strategy. That again, I'm not explaining that thoroughly today because it's not our objective here. But I started again with the distalization in one side, visualization in the other side, in the other arch, and we managed to correct the problem within something like 13 months. Okay, so 13 months for stopping the wrong way and restarting from there. And as you can see here, we have now a good smile. Midlines are almost completely corrected. This patient was going to get married, and she asked me, Kleber, can remove the appliance? I'm going to get married, and I need to do that. Okay, you're not going to die because half of millimeter of not completely correct midline, but everything went well. She was completely satisfied with this. Okay, so I referred her to the cosmetic dentist, but she didn't come back yet. So again, now we are going to see my own mistake. Same problem. I came from this patient, started from this point, asked me to the correction of this. She was concerned about the space and everything. And my treatment planning in this case was to go in forward with the lower left side, right side here, and to use the posterior segment on the left side to go forward to close this gap here. And in the upper side, the upper arch, the plan was to correct the midline that was shift towards her left, going right with the midline. And I used this approach, which was not the best, but was what I used at that time. Again, more than 20 years, more than 15 years, I'm sorry. This was something like 2005 or something like that. Yes, and then I used elastics for securing the posterior anchorage here, for going forward with this segment here, and for going forward with this premolar, I used the coil spring, and I let it in position for a long time. So let's see what's going to happen in this spot here. Look at this. What is going to happen here? This is the class 2 elastic that was being worn just to be the anchorage of the movement, and you're going to see what's going on here. So I saw this, and I didn't recognize the problem. Do you see, guys, how important it is? From here to here, what happened? Everything went worse. So just now I realized that I was generating a problem, that I was going the wrong path. So I had to stop and reinitiate, restart. What can I do to change this? Why this thing changed? Why did thing happen here? Because of one soul, one line of action of the force being applied this high. And for a long time, this tooth is going forward, and going forward, it goes with the inclination being generated because of the moment. So in the mesial part of the bracket, the wire is going down. Why is that? Because of the inclination. I'm sorry, the angulation. Inclination, we refer to the torque. The angulation of the crown. So we have this happening, and in front of the bracket, in the mesial part of the bracket, it's going down. So it is forcing those anterior teeth to the premolar to go down because of the force of the wire. Do you understand that? And I realized, my gosh, this is not going well. What am I doing here? So you see, during my own practice, in my daily practice, I was seeing something that wasn't expected to see. Most people that I know, they would say, oh, it won't happen with me. Actually, I was showing this case, and one guy in the internet told me, oh, this is something that's not going to happen in my office. Never happens. And I asked him, what is going, because I showed the vectors and everything, what is wrong with the system, force system that I drew here? Nothing is wrong, Professor, but it's not something that clinically it won't happen. I said, well, this is where I rest my case, because I can't convince you of something that you have in your mind, in your heart, but you're not seeing. So it's okay. Most people would say, no, it's not happening because they don't see. Don't take pictures, don't take photographs each time patients come back to their offices, and they just don't see. And they go like 4 years and say, no, it didn't happen in my case. Yes, it happened. But he or she didn't even recognize it. It's common. Maybe you can say, well, if I don't see, my heart don't feel. But it's not a good thing to do, okay? You can go faster. And I'm going to show it to you. So let's move on. What do we do now to correct the problem that I generated myself? I can just stop here and go now with another kind of approach, which is, can you see what's going on, guys? Now I'm applying the force this way. Now I'm applying the line of action of the force to go forward with the molar in a lower position. Now, this line of action of the force is generating a moment that is a counterclockwise moment. And now, what is going on in the mesial part of the molar? The mesial part or the molar is going to force the wire upwards. So this is what I want. I know the side effect, and recognizing the side effect, I accept the good side effect and I avoid the bad side effect. One line of action, but now being applied in the right position, Okay, and let's see, moving on. And now I managed to solve the problem that I generated myself, okay? Because I recognize the problem. Remember, what we are doing here is to recognize the problems. So just one line of action. And this is for us to finish our class about this huge problem of orthodontics. I'm going to show something that I see very frequently in the internet. This is something that I didn't do myself. The problem, the mistake here generated is not mine, because it's something new. And I've seen this very frequently nowadays. People using this as a strategy to correct the inclination of anterior teeth. So if we don't understand biomechanics, we can look at that and say, yes, it makes sense, but it doesn't. And I'm going to show it to you. So what we have here is this. What is the purpose of this chain attached from canine to canine? In this case, the purpose here, the objective here, the aim is to go backwards with the crown. but it won't. Why is that? If you just have this force, it won't, because we know biomechanics. In this case, you have contact points that won't change the inclination of those anterior teeth. And for people that just see this, it may make sense. Of course, it makes sense because people are using that with this purpose, with the aim to do the inclination, to correct the inclination of anterior teeth. They call it the torque in anterior teeth, but it won't happen. And let me show you why. If you don't have other forces acting here in the system, like for example, distalization of upper, or using extractions or distalizing the whole arch at the same time, we won't let it happen. Why is that? Because of this. What we have here is a force being generated because of the stretching of these chains, and these chains are going to be stretched from molar to molar. What we want, it won't make a difference. If you don't have the stretch here, the chain here, same thing is going to happen. Just put from canine to canine, the chain, same thing. You are not doing the distalization with other strategies here. You are doing just this, the chain. And the chain won't change the inclination. This is the explanation that the author said. I know that the idea is good when it's applied the way the author proposed, but this way is wrong. This way is wrong because the force that we are generating here is just one line of action of the force and is being applied here, generating a moment. But remember, for the moment to occur, for the moment to take place, we need to have the movement, the distal movement of the crown. Why is that? Because it is based on this concept. We are applying one force far from the center of resistance, and what is going to change the inclination of this tooth or teeth, the whole segment, which is the purpose of that chain, we need to go backwards with the crown. So for going backwards with the crown, we need to have space. Otherwise, we are not changing the inclination. So this is what is going to happen to change the inclination. And the line of action of the force passing this far from the center of resistance, approximately 10, 11 millimeters, it won't matter. It is going to approximate the center of rotation from the center of resistance, being a little bit more apical in relation to the center of resistance. So for that, you can see, we need to go backwards with the crown. Otherwise, it won't change the inclination, okay? So for having this, we are not using the right concept. For having this, and I'm gonna show to you now what's going on here. I'm gonna stop moving the canine. The canine now is my reference. The canines now are the points, the steady points. And if we do this, using that strategy, I told you, for a change in inclination, it's in this design of system of force here. It needs to go, those anterior crowns, they need to go backwards, palatally. So now we have the problem here. Two bodies, they don't occupy the same place in space at the same time, okay? So for that, we need to have space. If we don't have space, it won't change. Oh, yes, we can do IPR, but for that, for changing that amount, that magnitude of inclination, you need to do a lot of IPR. And I really don't advise that. Don't do that. So what can we do? The idea that the authors and people who use this is different from this. The idea is just trying to put this way. Let's see. The idea is changing the inclination of anterior teeth, but without changing the position of the canine. The only way to do this is transferring the center of rotation to the tip, to the incisor tip of those anterior teeth. You can't do that using just one line of action of the force. Not me saying that. Physics is saying that. Okay? We can't do this movement with This is strategy. For doing that, we need a torque. We need a pure moment for that. You may say, Kleber, you're wrong. When we apply a moment, when we apply just a couple, for example, the torque is going to apply a couple, and the couple is going to generate a moment, which is a free vector, placing the center of rotation in the center of resistance. It's not right. Not right in this field that we treat. Why is that? This is right when we apply in the free space, in the free body space. Not the same thing here. What's going to happen in this situation? The wire stiffness, the small interbracket distance will limit vertical moments. And for having this inclination of the crown going backwards, with the center of rotation being the center of resistance, we are going to apply like a pendulum with the center of the pendulum positioned here. So in this case, it's not true. We can't go forward and we can't go downwards with those anterior crowns. So we have the center of rotation located the center of resistance. I'm so sorry I can't go further in this explanation with a thorough explanation about it because I have an article on this topic, which is not published yet. So once it goes published, I can show everything. But what's going on here is something like this. Because of the rigid arch wire that we are using that prevents the vertical and the distal movement of those anterior crown, which is going to be mandatory. So the center of rotation is the center of resistance. So in this case, we have something like this. We transfer the center of rotation to a place close to the bracket, or case we can change the inclination. But is it real good? Is it really what we want? Sometimes it is not. So pay attention to that, okay? So guys, that's the first class. We wanted to show to you the problem. One huge problem that if you understand, if you have the tools to overcome this problem, meaning I won't apply just one line of action of the force. I have to apply other things, other devices, other strategies, so I can compensate that moment that I don't want. This is huge in orthodontics. This is important in orthodontics. I would say paramount, okay? Those are the most common mistakes that we see people having in their treatments. Those are the most common mistakes that we see in social media, we see when people, when transfer patients and everything. I hope these mistakes, these errors that I showed you here in this class may open your eyes for avoiding them in your daily practice. I'm sure that you're going from now on, pay attention to those mistakes and you are going to be able to recognize them. Tell me something. Isn't it important? I think it is too much. If this class helped you in some ways, guys, please do something for me. Take a screenshot and post in your social media and tag me. I am going to be happy to see that I'm reaching good people around the world, okay? Oh, and there's something else here. You can see here a link that I'm going to leave here in this class. You can click this link and you're going to see an additional material that I prepared for you. Go there. Another quick reminder, on 17th, Wednesday, yes, we're going to go to stage 2. We're going to another level so you can understand a little bit more about biomechanics and we go on in our learning process. You know that's a very, very long curve, but you are going to reach that point, the higher point. This lecture is going to be released 9 a.m. sharp, 9 a.m. So take your time to watch this completely during your day. And now, just for finishing, and let me remove my glass to look you in your eye, just to remind you of something very important. Your patients, they are delivering their health in your hands. So you owe them understanding everything about biomechanics. Again, it's not something that you're doing for doing something better to your treatments, doing something better to your patients. No, this is something that's mandatory. For treating your patients and charging them for those treatments, you need to deliver the best treatment possible. And for that, you are obligated to understand completely biomechanics. You owe this to your patient. See you soon, guys. Bye-bye.